Hey, what's up, guys? Sean here. So we are coming to you today from the new coffee corner. So we'll be using this area for short little videos, discussion type videos and things like that in the future. But today I want to talk to you about something kind of important. So we are in the beginning of hurricane season, and so we need to be getting our stuff together. Today we're going to talk about 5 low budget preps that we all should have. Let's get it. Alright, so first up, you really should have a hard copy of important papers, pictures that you can't replace, documents such as titles, insurance, that sort of thing, and a notebook with written down address and cell phone numbers just in case something happens to your phone when you're on the road. You can also keep these things on a thumb drive. That way you can plug it into a computer at some point down the road. Now what you're going to want to do is make sure that is protected in a waterproof plastic container. Something as simple as a Ziploc plastic bag will work. You can get some of the bigger vacuum bags if you'd like. The Ziploc bags work a lot easier though. That way you can access them, put things in and out a whole lot easier than having to vacuum seal something. But the only thing about the Ziploc bags is bigger documents may have to be folded. If that's something you don't want to do, then just go ahead and plan for that ahead of time and go ahead and make sure that you have a bag that will fit those items. These little Ziploc bags will work for the majority of what you want, and this will keep your stuff together and waterproof just in case you have to grab it in a hurry and get on the road. Now, speaking of getting on the road, number 2 is having a planned evacuation route with multiple contingencies. So depending on whether that storm is coming at you from the Gulf or if it's coming at you from the Atlantic side, depending on where you're at, you need to make sure you have an evacuation route. Now, you and I both know that when storms are coming, evacuation routes get ridiculous. So if you're like me, you like to have some alternate plans. So I like to have contingencies set up just in case it looks like the evacuation routes are going to be packed. So evacuation routes are planned to move a lot of traffic quick, but I'm a back roads kind of guy, so I know that if I can, I'm going to hit the back roads and just bypass all that unnecessary traffic that's backed up along the roads. You need to make sure that your routes have fuel stops available and that sort of thing, but you need to make sure that you have an evacuation route. Now, I suggest having a paper map backup. That's just me. You do what you want to do, but GPSs, things like that can fail you, and in that situation with a storm coming, that's not really what you want to have to worry about. So just in case, for peace of mind, make sure you have a paper map backup. So number 3, really simple. Safe up that yard debris. So make sure that you have the patio table picked up, the chairs, an umbrella, that barbecue grill that's sitting out there. All of those things can become an airborne hazard in heavy winds. So if you'll go ahead and safe up that stuff, put it away, make sure it's not laying around in the yard. All that stuff is a simple, easy way to prep for a hurricane. It's not going to cost you anything. Number 4, stock up on water, but not necessarily buying it from the store. Before a hurricane, you can stock up on water from your tap, and it's really simple. If you will take that old 2-liter bottle that you just got done drinking, the old gallon of milk, those types of things, you can rinse those out with warm soapy water, make sure you get everything out of them, and refill those things right from the tap. If you add 3, 4, 5 drops of good unscented chlorine bleach into those bottles can last up to 6 months. Put those things in a dark, dry, cool area, and that water will last you for a good while. So stocking up on water doesn't necessarily mean running to the store and buying bottles and bottles of water. When you get a pallet of water, when you get a case of water, it takes about 7 of those bottles to make a gallon of water. So it doesn't take long before you're out of water when you thought you had enough. So everybody should have a minimum of a gallon of water per day during a storm or during an emergency. So if you have to do 7 bottles per day to just get to your gallon of water, you're going to run out of that water pretty quick. Now, one thing that I like to do is get 5-gallon buckets. You can go get 5-gallon buckets for a few dollars. And once you have those 5-gallon buckets, you can reuse them over and over again. So that's another inexpensive way to stock up on fresh water. But if you're going to do low budget with things that you probably already have, clean out those gallon milk jugs, those 2-liter bottles, fill those things up with water, add 4 or 5 drops of good chlorine bleach, and you're good to go for about 6 months. So number 5 should be a no-brainer. Stock up on BOGO canned foods. So a lot of times when we go to Publix, they'll have buy one get one free canned goods and things like that. Make sure you're getting the canned goods that your family are going to eat. Don't get a bunch of spinach or something like that that your family's just not going to eat because it's not going to do you any good. Get the things that your family are going to eat. Buy one get one free, and you can actually use the ones that you bought to eat and just stack those free ones in an area that they're going to be out of the way and you're going to be able to access them when you need them. And it's just a simple way to stock up on hurricane foods. And once you get the hurricane food, guys, you don't necessarily have to just eat it up. You can store it up until the next hurricane. Now, speaking of that, you need to make sure that you have some way to cook those canned foods. So whether you use sterno and a sterno stove, or if you have a small propane grill or a little gas stove or something like that, you need to prepare to have a way to cook that just in case the power goes out. Now I want to talk to you about something that's pretty important to me. A lot of people, when storms come through, tensions are high, we're all a little bit on edge, tend to forget that the line workers are out there busting their butt most of the time while the storm is still coming in to clear lines and get the power back on. But we tend to get inconvenienced. It's hot. We're afraid we're going to lose our food that's in the freezer. These kind of things. And people tend to lash out at the linemen that are trying to get the power back on. And guys, these guys are working 16, 17, 18-hour days, typically soaking wet in long-sleeve denim shirts and jeans, work boots that are soaking wet. And not only that, these guys are out there running chainsaws. They're out there sometimes climbing poles when the poles are on back lots. So if they're behind your house and they can't get a truck to it, these guys are having to go out there and bust their butt and climb these poles. And then on top of that, they have to wear these, what they call gloves and sleeves. So they're big rubber sleeves with leather gloves on top of the rubber sleeves. And it becomes a sauna inside there. And so people get up in arms, they get tense, they get aggravated, and that's understandable. But don't take it out on the linemen that are trying to get your power back on. That's not fair. These guys are really busting their butt, and I know sometimes you'll see them, oh, well, they're all standing there not doing anything. That's not the case. When you see those guys standing there where you think they're not doing anything, somebody is planning either for the next step, or they're on a stand down for flagging and tagging. So what they'll do a lot of times is they have to go through and make sure that the power line is dead at both ends before they can get on that line and start cutting limbs off of that line and things like that. So when you think that those guys aren't doing anything, chances are they're being told to stand there and wait until it's safe to work. And we want those guys to be safe, because if they're not out there working, you're not going to get your power back on. And that kind of leads me to another thing that I want to talk about. We all kind of have a tendency of wanting to get out there and help. I'll grab my chainsaw, I'll cut some of these trees, things like that. I understand that. But something you need to remember is immediately after that storm, it is hard for emergency crews or ambulances and things like that to come help you. So if you accidentally cut your leg off with a chainsaw or things like that, you're going to be in a really bad situation. So those of us homeowners who aren't professionals that with using chainsaws and things like that, maybe right after the hurricane isn't the right time to start trying to practice. These trees can be under tremendous tension, and as soon as you make the wrong cut, that limb can go flying, that tree can stand back up on its own. It's amazing what a tree under tension can do. Now, along those same lines, when you see a power line on the ground, just because that power line is on the ground does not mean it's dead. So don't go walking next to power lines. Don't go picking up power lines and trying to move those out of the way, because that line can still be live and kill you. And something else that you don't really think about is the fact that this power line, just because it's laying on the ground, it might have a lot of slack in it. If somewhere down that line it has a couple of trees on that line, it can still be under heavy tension under those trees and have slack in the middle of it. So as soon as somebody cuts the tension off of one of those trees, it can snap that line back tight in an instant. I've seen it happen. I've seen a guy get hit with a line that just quickly retensioned, and it slung him about 50 feet. Luckily, he landed in an azalea bush and only got some scrapes and bruises and stuff like that and didn't get decapitated. So that's something to think about. Just because it looks like it's dead does not mean it's dead. Now, last up on this little rant, I guess, is I want you to be careful. If you don't have the setup to run your generator back into your house, the switch to run the generator back into your house safely, you need to get that set up before you try to run your whole house off of your generator. And the reason that is because your generator can do what's called backfeeding a transformer. So if you don't have that top breaker cut off on your panel box, and somehow you backfeed power to that transformer, you can kill somebody that's working on that line, because that transformer will work backwards. So not only does that transformer break the power down to feed your house, if you feed it backwards, it can ramp that power back up through that transformer and kill the guy working on the line down the road. So that happens every year, and I want you guys to be cognizant of that. Think about that. And if you're going to run a whole house generator, make sure you have a transfer switch. Alright guys, so that's all I have for you this week. We actually have our first named tropical storm out there in the Gulf right now, headed towards Texas. Tropical Storm Alberto. So you guys make sure you have all your preps ready and be safe out there, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it that big thumbs up for me. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down there. Ring the notification bell so you'll get notified next time we put out a video. You can follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. Appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you next week.